The Legend of Zelda series has treated pro gamers, such as you or myself, to an array of fantastic adventures and quests for over 35 years. Most recently, the duology of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom has captivated tens of millions around the world. Despite being a sequel, Tears of the Kingdom's continuation of continuity established during Breath of the Wild can be rather vague, as both games are also their own separate standalone stories. One thing, though, that remains strong, however, is the continued growth of the titular character Zelda. That's right, the Princess of Hyrule, the little bird herself. If you play through and experience the story of Breath of the Wild, it is virtually impossible not to hold empathy for this iteration of Zelda. Have you ever tried your best at something, and no matter what, you always came up short? Well, I'm sure we all have. But when your best efforts only lead to a failure so catastrophic that all your friends are now dead and your homeland lay in ruin, well darn, that just beyond sucks. What makes Zelda's struggle to unlock her divine abilities all the more tragic is that the only person who could have guided her, her mother, died when Zelda was still a young child. The only parental figure she had thereafter was her father, King Rome, and even while sugarcoating it, the best way I can describe his parental abilities is completely inept. If only old King Rome could have learned the meaning of the word nurture. Perhaps this hits me a little harder personally because my mother passed away the same year Breath of the Wild was released. Also, as someone who grew up without a present and positive male role model, it just became second nature for me to truly connect with Zelda on a heart-to-heart basis. Fast forward now to Tears of the Kingdom, and we follow Zelda, a strong, confident young woman who is now free to explore her curiosities, a love of technology, and a thirst for knowledge, never quenched. Without the oppression of King Rome's lack of parenting skills, the audience gets a glimpse of Zelda taking her own life by the horns, doing things her own way. Not long after traveling through time to the ancient past, Zelda meets the founding king and queen of Hyrule, Rauru and Sonia. It doesn't take long for these royal folk to undertake the role of surrogate parents to Zelda. Unlike Rome, these two are nurturing, sympathetic, and know how to listen. Zelda at last has a father figure who holds her best interests at heart, has a willingness to help, and will do so without negating his kingly duties as the leader of Hyrule. And so without further ado, I am Marco Varius, and this is how Rauru absolved my daddy issues. King Rauru, the first king of Hyrule, has got to be the most chill dude of all time. He hails from the sky and is the last surviving man of his race, the Zonai. He possesses an array of powerful magic and abilities, and it is said that people once compared him to that of the gods when he first came down to this land. Sealing powers, beams of light, force fields, and let's not forget all the abilities his right arm alone was able to empower Link with. Despite all these awesome powers, he is very relaxed and carefree. I really picture him spending his free time doing little outside of wandering the countryside with his wife Sonia while they hold hands and partake in tea and picnics. This man could literally do anything he wanted or force his kingdom's people to bend to his whim, but he desires little outside of maintaining peace and looking pretty. So why bother abusing such abilities when you've already got it all? Thank you for not being greedy, O Rauru. In addition to controlling an arsenal of powers and abilities, he isn't shy to ask for help when required, and he understands when something lies outside of his area of expertise. When Zelda required assistance learning about the Zonai history and culture, or about learning to master her newfound time magic powers, Rauru immediately pointed Zelda in the direction of his older sister Minoru and his wife Sonia for extra help. This demonstrates vulnerability, and it tells the audience that his Hyrule is not a kingdom that is founded on patriarchy, something you would just never get from the headstrong King Rome. And speaking as someone whose parents are of the boomer generation, it is refreshing to see a man admit his mistakes and shortcomings and not hold a fake it till you make it mentality. Heck, We even see Rauru's spirit mourn for the constructs dwelling in the Sky Islands that continue to work for eons, despite no longer serving any purpose to do so. That's right, the man even holds empathy for frickin' robots. Truly, a heart of gold lay within Rauru, for he bears a perpetual, proactive respect for himself, women, and the ever-loving Zonai constructs. So much respect, in fact, King Rauru also even respects his enemies. During Ganon's false vow of fealty, even though it is obvious that his intentions are toxic to the glory of Hyrule, Rauru is still willing to take Ganondorf at face value. Besides wanting to keep a closer eye on Ganon, Rauru also does this out of respect for him. As many Zelda fans already know by now, a single male is born into the Gerudo every 100 years, and so being a king by birth does indeed garner some respect. Imagine these two kings working together for a common goal. Under Rauru's rule, Hylians, Zora, Gorons, Rito, and Korok all united as one country to add the Gerudo under the umbrella of unbridled benevolent peace. Could you imagine a world of unity with no borders or wars? Could anyone legitimately be mad with Rauru for boldly challenging such a task? Unfortunately, as we all know, Rauru's hubris and relaxed disposition does lead to his eventual downfall. So tragic. Just because Rauru is the perfect father doesn't mean he can't make mistakes. Allowing Ganondorf into the castle ultimately led to the murder of Sonia, which led to Ganon procuring a secret stone for himself, which not only transformed him into the Demon King, but also shrouded the land in darkness. Now a mere back against the wall, his beloved queen gone and no time to mourn, we see Rauru, a once strong, proud, and easygoing leader, reduced to a broken man. He's just so distraught with himself and devastated by the situation. Zelda, in an attempt to comfort Rauru, even expressed how she blamed herself for not disclosing that Ganondorf survives well into the future, sooner and in greater detail. And it would seem, for a brief moment, that Rauru considers blaming Zelda as well, but ultimately, he is still able to maintain his level-headedness and not lose track of his ability and willingness to listen. He remembers all he had learned about Link from Princess Zelda's anecdotes. Zelda, the Princess of Hyrule, the little bird herself, had indeed become the surrogate daughter to Rauru. And like any good father ought to do, he not only listens to his children, but he believes in them. And the one thing Zelda believed in most of all was hyping up just how amazing Link was. It is so rewarding to see Zelda was given a second chance to be listened to and respected by a father figure. And by golly, did it ever pay off in spades. As we all know, Link does pull through and destroys Ganon, once, forever. Obviously, it was the power of the hero and the Master Sword which did Ganon in, but it is hard to deny that Rauru's role as the perfect father set the entire plan into motion. There comes a point in everyone's life where you learn to distinguish the family you are born into versus the family you choose for yourself. This is something Rauru embodied for Zelda to a T. So in closing, Rauru is a solid dude, an absolute unit. He's had many great powers and abilities, but ultimately, it was his power to listen that overcame his relaxed overconfidence and downfall. Even in the face of his enemies, he's still willing to take the route of diplomacy. And when all was lost, he put everything on the line and sacrificed his very life for what he valued most. And in the end, he won, not because he's a great king, but because he's a great father figure and listener. So rest in peace, dear sweet Rauru, last of the Zonai, beloved king, husband, source of the right arm, and above all else, daddy. And there you have it. Thank you for tuning in today to listen to my essay about Rauru, the first king of Hyrule. I would greatly appreciate it if you could give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more Rauru action. And as always, ZA-POW!